Good day, everyone. This content is for educational purpose use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, to use this as an educational material. First, I would like to introduce my co-members and the presenters. By the way, I am Engine Cadet Rekla, together with my group members, Engine Cadet Duba, Engine Cadet Retiza, Engine Cadet Calabroso, Engine Cadet Tumuling, Engine Cadet Abad, Engine Cadet Juarez, and lastly, Engine Cadet Gomez. Before we will proceed to our topic, here is our objectives. First, understand the problem. Learn what human trafficking is and how it happens around the world and locally. Next, identify victims and traffickers. Know how to recognize people who might be victims and those who are traffickers. The third one is learn the laws. Study the laws and policies that are in place to fight human trafficking. The fourth one is prevent and protect. Find out how to prevent. My assigned topic is to discuss what is human trafficking. So, human trafficking is when people are tricked, forced, or coerced into situation where they exploited for things like forced labor, sex organ, or harvesting. It's like being trapped and used by others against your will. It is also a severe violation of basic rights of a human. So we have types for human trafficking. So we have forced labor, sex trafficking, child trafficking, and organ trafficking. Some victims can be any of age, gender, nationality, or socio-economic background. To address this, it needs a cooperation and collaboration with the governments, law enforcement agencies, non-government organizations, or NGOs. We have also the police or any that can help to rescue them.
Example of human trafficking, forced labor. People are made to work hard and are not allowed to leave, and they might work on farms or in factories or as domestic helper, often with very little pay and bad conditions. And the second is sex trafficking. Women, men, or children are forced to do sexual things against their will, like prostitutions or pornography. They might be tricked with false promises or threatened, threatened with violence. The third is child trafficking. Children are made to work big or do other dangerous things. They might be forced to join arms group or made to marry they when they are too young. And the fourth is organ trafficking. People are tricked or forced to give up their organs like a kidney to be sold for transplant. This often done to people who are very poor and desperate. And the last is forced married. Some is forced to marry someone they don't want to, usually through threats or lies. They might suffer abuse and have no say in their own life.
So, the one example of human trafficking in the Philippines is the exploitation of children for labor in the fishing industry. Children are often forced to work long hours in dangerous conditions, deprived of education and proper cares.
Now, I'm going to discuss the three elements of human trafficking, which is act, means, and purpose. Now, let's go to act. The act refers to what is done to the victim. This includes the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of person. Like recruitment. A trafficker convinces a person from a rural area to move to a city with promises of a well-paying job. Next is transportation. Victims are transported across borders using fake documents. For example, in ACT, a young woman is recruited from a rural area and transported to a city. Now, let's go to means. The means involves how the act is carried out. This can include the use of threat, force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power, or giving payments benefits to a person in control of the victim. Like coercion. A victim is treated with violence if they try to escape or report their situation. Deception. A person falsely promised a legitimate job but upon arrival is forced into exploitative work condition. For example, in a young lady, she is deceived by promises of a good job as a housekeeper. That that's me that's a means because the trafficker promised her that he can get a better job. Number 3, which is purpose. The purpose refers to why the act is done. This is always for the purpose of exploitation, which can include sexual exploitation, forced labor, slavery, or similar practices, and a removal of organs like sexual exploitation. Victims are forced into prostitution or other forms of sexual exploitation. Forced labor. This is also included in purpose. Individuals are made to work in the factories, farms, or is as domestic servants under the condition that violate their rights. For example, in a young woman, she is exploited in the sex industry, forced into prostitution.
There is a high incidence of child prostitution in tourist areas. An undetermined number of children are forced into exploitative labor operations. As of 2020, the Philippines is ranked as a Tier 1 in the Trafficking in Persons report of the United States State Department after substantial efforts.
My topic is human trafficking and migration. Human trafficking and migration are deeply interconnected issues. Migration often involves people moving in search of better opportunities, fleeing poverty, conflict, or natural disasters. This vulnerability is exploited by traffickers who deceive or coerce individuals into exploitative situations. Migrants may lack legal status, language skills, and social networks make them easy targets for traffickers. They can be forced into labor, sexual exploitation, or domestic servitude. The promise of better life turns into a nightmare of abuse and exploitation. Addressing this requires comprehensive strategies that protect migrants' rights, provide safe migration pathways, and robustly combat trafficking networks, ensuring that migrants have legal and safe avenues for migration reduces their vulnerability to traffickers and help to protect Human rights.
Now let's talk about understanding human rights in migration. It is basically means recognizing and respecting the rights of migrants, ensuring fairness, equality, and dignity throughout their journey, regardless of their immigration status. It involves providing access to essential services, protecting vulnerable groups, upholding labor rights, facilitating family reunification, and preventing arbitrary detention. So, now let's talk about the universality of human rights. All migrants have fundamental human rights regardless of their migration status. Next, let's talk about the non discrimination. Migrants should be treated equally without discrimination based on race, nationality, or other factors. And another one is right of asylum. Asylum seekers have the right to seek protection from persecution and violence in their home countries. Next is protection of vulnerable groups. Special attention should be given to the rights and needs of vulnerable groups such as women, children, and LGBTQ individuals. Another one is access to essential services. Migrants should have access to essential services like healthcare, education, and legal assistance. Next is we have the labor rights. Migrant workers are entitled to fair and safe working conditions, including the right to join trade unions and collective bargaining. Another one is the what we mentioned earlier, we called family reunification. Migrants have the right to maintain family unity and to be reunited with their family members. Another is the prevention of arbitrary detention. Measures should be taken to prevent arbitrary detentions of migrants and ensure alternatives to detentions are prioritized.
Topic is the adverse effect of human trafficking on globalization. So let's start. Human trafficking is a significant human rights violation that has severe consequences for individuals, communities, and societies. The rise of globalization has inadvertently contributed to the growth of human trafficking, which has far-reaching adverse effect on globalization itself. So these are the some of the examples. So adverse effect of human trafficking on globalization. So undermining of labor standards. Human trafficking leads to the exploitations of workers, uh, depresses wages and undermines labor standards, which can negatively impact to the competitiveness of legitimate business. So example, the garment industry in Bangladesh, which is a significant contributor to the country's economy, has faced criticism for poor labor practices, including human trafficking, uh, hindering economic development. Human trafficking generate vast profits, which often fuel organized crime and corruption rather than contributing to economic development and growth. So, example for this, in Thailand, human trafficking is estimated to generate around $10, $10 billion annually, but this money does not contribute to the country's economic development. So the next one, damaging national and international relations. So human trafficking can damage a country's reputation, leading to international criticism and sanctions, which can harm trade relations and economic corporations. So, another example for this is the United States Department of States Trafficking in Person, or TIP, reports ranks countries based on their report efforts To combat human trafficking, a low ranking can lead to sanctions and damage international relations, perpetuating inequality and discriminations. Human trafficking disproportionately affects vulnerable populations, so including women, children, and migrants, perpetuating inequality and discriminations. So example, women and girls are disproportionately represented among human trafficking victims, with many being forced into sex trafficking or domestic servitude. Uh, Next one is the fueling organized crime and corruption. Human trafficking is often linked to organized crime and corruption, which can undermine trust and in institution and the rule of law. So example, in Mexico, human trafficking has been linked to drug cartels, so which has contributed to widespread corruptions and violence. So these are some of the key points about human trafficking. Human trafficking is a significant obstacle to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, particularly SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. International Labor Organizations, or IOL, I I mean ILO, estimates that there are over 40 million victims of modern slavery worldwide, with the majority being women and girls. So the global fight against human trafficking requires to coordinated efforts from government, civil society, and the private sectors to prevent trafficking, protect victims, and prosecute traffickers. So, in conclusion, human trafficking has served severe adverse effect on globalization, hindering economic development, undermining labor standards, and perpetuating inequality and discriminations. It is essential to recognize the devastating consequences of human trafficking and work together to combat these serious violations of human rights. So that's all. Thank you.